Okay, everybody, I am Cosmic Surfer. Welcome back. So we're going to continue today going through some of the people that I really like in terms of the quality of their information. Today we're going to get into Ashton Forbes, who has done great work on MH370. I do believe that this is a case that can crack open an opportunity for free energy, 0 point energy, natural law, objective morality could be the case, which bridges everything together because it gets into the occult, gets into the last 100 years of energy suppression and also distorted reality, gets into timelines and time travel and the hard science behind it. Now the first guy that's on here is Dave Rossi. Now, he's the guy that was just figuring out the kind of the history, and during COVID he had his own channel, Generation Z, I think is the channel, or Generation Z, and basically he became an engineer himself. And now he's got some private contracts as well. Basically, figures some stuff out, builds over Unity devices. Using magnetic motors. And then you've got Salvatore Pais, who is a Navy guy, and has got some patents, and there's some overlap between the technology behind the teleportation of MH370 and his work. And so I want to get into this today because I think it's very important and kind of brings in together a whole different range of fields. But basically, the point that I want to get to is that 0 point energy has been hidden behind the national security threat of nuclear. And so I want to get into, how there's an argument here for natural law and objective morality so that we can have and use this technology because it's already been weaponized against us. And so there is no external authority. And so therefore, those people that have already got the technology don't have the right to use it against us, and then say that you can't have it because you're going to blow up the world or similar. So let me cue up this. And away we go.
I will say, yeah, we're friends. Yeah, on a personal level. Again, out of respect for his privacy.
Talking about Eric Davis here because he did an interview with Eric Davis
and whatnot. I promise that with further questions, I won't be, playing footsie, so to speak. But yeah, no, I can tell you, and I'll come full circle with this answer. He is certainly, without question, one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. The guy is literally, as you've seen from my interviews, right? The guy's literally like a library. You can ask him something, no matter the time of day, and he'll pluck it out and he'll tell you. Personally, yeah, no, we're personal friends, and he's I consider him in certain aspects or regards, much like Sal, like a mentor. I look up to a lot of Eric's papers and work and whatnot. I guess we've just had a bit more of a personal relationship where, when I've asked him sometimes, would you want to come on the show? He says yes, and he's happy to do it. And to be fair, there were other times, when I asked and he was busy and so on.
For context here, Ashton believes that Eric Davis knows a lot and he's giving kind of bullshitty answers. So he's like being trained to deceive.
And so we had to wait. But yeah, no, that's I'm reading between the lines. Believe me, you and your audience, I know you guys are getting that. And yes, I will say he's a personal friend. Very, very, very nice guy. He's always been very nice to me and everything. And I am always blown away by his physics work, just like Sal.
So let me ask. So he's your mentor. Is that true? Is that what you said?
I don't want to go around and boastfully say, oh, this person's my mentor, this or that or whatever. He's someone that I would say I look up to, I go to for advice in scientific realms and whatnot. And I've presented some things to him that are considered sort of on the out there of physics. And I will tell you that one of the things I really appreciate about him is that he doesn't dismiss any concepts or any proposals offhand. He's always very much investigating into what is actually being proposed. used, and he really does take the time to listen to the technological possibilities of what you're trying to present. So I will say that, yeah, he's very attentive in that regard. I remember he did a radio interview, I think about 6 or 7 years ago, where the interviewer had said, you know, what's it like working in fringe physics? And he said, well, it's not really fringe physics. We don't like to call it that. It's more just outside of the box physics. And so that's what I would say. And you could say, yeah, sure. I definitely look up to him in that regard.
So, and I want to talk about the outside the box thing in a second, but before we do that, and I hope this isn't too personal.
One of the things I really like about Dave Rossi is that he does come across as quite balanced and heart-centered and kind of is mindful. I appreciate that about him.
Well, is that I don't remember who it is, but somebody said that Eric Davis isn't capable of lying. And I will say from my own impression, watching interviews, he seems very forthcoming with information, but at the same time, he's kind of guarded. Like, I think he even implied that he was trained by the CIA to avoid questions, or he said something along those lines in your interview. So do you think that he is lying to protect national security with respect to like technology and advancements? I mean, specifically, I'm talking about his wormhole teleportation physics science, because there's a big disconnect in my mind between him bragging to, I think it was George Knapp or something like on Coast to Coast or whatever, bragging about General Lonnie holding up his teleportation physics study going,
right,
this is the type of research I want done in my Air Force research labs.
Right.
And I'm going, but then you ask him like, oh, well, does anybody have this? And he's like, nope, nobody has this. Nobody's has this. It's like, how do I connect
how do you reconcile? Sure. And believe me, my mind has gone to the notion that, of course, are there facilities out there in which are not connected with the Air Force or are connected to the Air Force or the military in non-official capacities per se, or an indirect, indirect ways that may in fact be working on that. I think it's very possible. I mean, I don't rule it out. Now, in terms of the progress that's been made, possibly far more than we may think, in terms of that. But I guess you could say officially, I mean, for sure, he was definitely, as he said, trained I believe, I don't want to speak for him, but by CIA in certain aspects and areas. And do I think that certain things have to be watched carefully for the protection of national security? Yes. Do I think that, how can I put it? It's
certain things like what, and this kind of gets back to this kind of same old question: who's protecting it? Why do they need to protect it? And so, yeah, we do know that when it comes to this stuff, unfortunately, it gets into nation state stuff, you know, like China, Russia, all of that, and then it gets into like the powers beyond any one country. And then so, yeah, I'm very cautious when it comes to like, oh, well, you know, we do have to protect the rollout of this.
It's not a binary 1 or 0 type answer. There are things that are very fringe, so to speak, that he will speak on and see possibilities in. But then if taken to a certain next level, sometimes, again, there's a no comment response, or there is a, nothing's there response. And sometimes you have to wonder maybe if that is indicative of something else. Yeah.
So here's another side question related to that, is he brought up the PEDS, Presidential Emergency Action Documents, which I had never heard of before. And he brought them up in the context of like, this is where they're hiding the UFO stuff. What do you think is in those PEDS that would be connected to UFOs that is at that level where the president, and who do you think, or let me just, this is the other part I'll say, is that,
sure.
So first of all, what do you think the PEDS are? Like, if you had to list an example of what a PED might be for people, it can even be a hypothetical one. And then do you think people like Hal Puthoff, for example, might be somebody who the CIA calls upon to determine when they enact those PEDS? Could that be a thing?
Sure. So one thing I'll say is that I'm just to clarify for your audience, of course, I'm not well versed in the whole notion of government acronyms and documents and what certain documents may entail over others or whatnot. I'm, as you know, more of the engineering interest in science and all that approach. But I would say that if, again, my opinion, those PEDs probably are comprised of some type of cohesive overall breakdown of what a presidential executive authority enacted many decades ago and what has since led to that, or maybe simply just the description of what that executive action entails is enough to just by definition that entire description on those pages would be enough to force a classification to the point where it would be above top secret. I would imagine that in my mind, I would envision the PEDs as being some type of certainly a quote unquote juicy document, if you will, but something that gives a breakdown, a matter of fact established breakdown of why the executive order was signed, what the executive order entails, and dare I say go as far as potential crash retrieval, potential recovery of certain materials and whatnot. And I think that ultimately that it would not be something that an engineer could look at and say, okay, I could make something from what I see in these documents. I think it would be more of an overall breakdown for someone like the president, who is not scientifically inept enough to understand equations if he looked at them and so on and so forth, nor is that his job. So I think we'd be looking at more of an overarching breakdown of a set of events that the executive orders authorized. And that would, of course, still be damning if ever leaked or released, obviously.
So you know what I think about? I mean, you're implying that there could be crash retrieval type stuff. And honestly, I don't know what's in the PEDs. I think that nobody really does know what's in them.
Right.
I think we do know that they have a branch that's like an administrative branch that's parallel to the presidency that has some level of control over them.
I'm sorry. You had asked if people like Dr. Pudov and others would be part of that decision. Let me just say, if I could parallel that, you mentioned a parallel branch, which I appreciate you saying very much, because I think we have to reconcile the notion that a lot of these, not just programs, but a lot of these actions and movements that have been taken, for better or worse, and efforts that have been made, often report to an unofficial body, if you will, that is purely based on credibility and trust, and you could say handshake agreements in which nothing is ever put on paper. That does have an influential say in the parallel branch, which would be the official government, if you will, because it's been speculated by others in the past and by others that have been inside some of these programs allegedly that these programs are, and the people who the groups that oversee these programs are a mixture of both quasi-government and non-government entities, right? So I think that something like that would probably be in parallel with an official government structure. Now, whether you want to call that a shadow government or what.
And Stephen Greer talks about this as well. I think he called it a stovepipe, maybe, where it's like you have certain programs surrounded by other programs, and they kind of use that to stop people from getting to the real information programs within programs. We may watch the interview that Ashton did, because he does review the MH370 case in that, but I'm not sure if we'll get to that today or not.
Have you? That's up for debate, and we can discuss that at a later time. But I think there would be parallel groups unofficially having large influences in areas, departments, and compartments of government that they would wield power that is, how can I put it, stronger than the official government.
So you mentioned that you gave an example of like, okay, maybe there's crash retrieval stuff, and there's a thing that says, okay, if the aliens crash, then this is how we're going to capture it. That seems more low. Like, that doesn't seem like the kind of thing that would have to go to that high level for me. When I think about it, what I think about is, what would be the plan for when Russia shoots 100 nukes at us? And then how do we respond?
Oh,
because
sure.
We can't wait for congressional approval when you have nuclear winter about to happen. To me, the PEDs definitely have nuclear
absolutely
responses in them, right?
I think you're absolutely correct, more so than myself. Absolutely. I think also the PEDs very likely entail breakthrough technologies that are considered so sensitive that, as we saw with, forgive me, I forgot his name, Matthew Borland, I think he said, when he talked about the value of these craft is not the structure of the craft itself or whatnot, it's the power source. And I think, of course, that's where a lot of this lies, right? And
for people new to this, one of the questions that people are zeroing in on when it comes to UFOs and advanced technology is drilling into what is the power source, so then you can remain on the trail of 0-point energy, aneutronic fusion, scalar technology, and so forth.
We also have to consider multiple ways of building that power source.
Yeah, I think that's
right, which also does get into if you're going to be using what's what I'm looking for? Yeah, there's like, you know, the magnetic wheels versus, you know, like say like quantum chips, for example. There's different ways to build the machines.
That's exactly what they're doing. I spoke to Dr. Greer a few weeks back, maybe about a month ago now. And I think that Eric Davis implied that they were using the PEDs to cover up this advanced technology, this UFO technology, what have you. And that would make sense that they would add to it. Is like you get some major breakthrough from reverse engineering, or even just if it doesn't even require reverse engineering, is that you would add it to those PEDs and you would hide it at that level, that level of classification that's kind of just above everything else.
Right.
So,
and if I could say very quickly, we also know that there are certain things within government that parallel with this unofficial set of entities or factions of groups in which certain information is deemed so classified that it doesn't even go through official classification processes, because the processes it would have to go through, too many hands would be touching and seeing that information. So in some cases, sounds crazy, but in some cases it's a literal handshake, you know, wink and a nod, old, you know, like in the old days type kind of agreement.
No, that makes sense. Although I do think a lot
He's said that a couple of times now, and that's very interesting. I mean, it makes sense to not have a paper trail.
of it's classified. I mean, if you look at even nuclear codes and nuclear secrets, like it's all organized, classified. That's how the government works in that respect. And then you just have to have a very high level of classification, even be able to see it on reports and things like that.
Absolutely.
I think that one thing that's concerned me that I've learned, and I want to get your opinion on this, is that it feels like there's a little bit of like, I mean, this is going to be obvious, but like a good old boys club or like a cult of actual secrecy around technology. Let's call it UFO technology for now.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the reason how it hasn't come out, is that people are generally shunned if they did it. And my personal view is that it's connected to nuclear weapons. That's why I was kind of implying the PEDs and stuff. So actually, before we get into all that and the good old boys club thing, I guess what I want to ask is one more question on Eric Davis. And this is a question that came from JK Philly fan, but I wanted to know too, is that Eugene Potkanov has been pretty popular for basically pushing this idea that we can get gravitational manipulation with spinning superconductors and we can produce thrust, depending on the design and engineering of it. I watched an interview with George Hathaway, actually, I think it was on Charles Chase's Unlab videos, where they go deep into it. And George Hathaway pretty much says, like, we tried to build it, but like, you know, Potkanov didn't give us everything. He didn't tell us all of it. So we had to do our best to do it. And then we tried to do it and it didn't work. So, you know, we wanted it to work, but it didn't. And I got kind of sketchy vibes from listening to him, where it's the same thing that people tell me about like the MH370 videos, is people be like, I wanted it to be real, but you know what? It's just not. So just stop talking about it, you know? So, and when Eric Davis gets asked about it, which is, he kind of poo-poos it as well. Like, no, it didn't really work. It's not really legit. And I'm kind of like, if you're the kind of person that believes in like, you know, wormhole physics, science, and gravitational manipulation and waves, like, you should be pretty much cheerleading that, I would think. So, like, what is your take on these guys, and like, what's going on with it? Does the Potkanov stuff work and they're just, you know, doing disinformation on it, or does it really not work? And are those guys right? Did they have something wrong? Like,
sure. Well, you make an interesting point, because one thing I wanted to point out before I answer your question as well is that I know from a podcast that was done or hosted by, I believe, Mrs. Anna Brady Estevez of the National Science.
Yeah.
Yes, of the National Science Foundation. I know that Lou DeSharo, a highly respected naval engineer, was on that podcast panel, and he brought up Podkletnov as well. And I find it interesting that no one on that panel objected. Now, maybe it was out of respect because it was on a podcast, but hard to say. Now, I will tell you that I know from my personal experience, there were attempts at replicating the Podkletnov experiment in which did not work by groups I know and others. However, I want to emphasize the notion of giving up too easily and not trying to go down that path. I believe, in my humble view, I do believe that there was a there to some extent, whether it is with the setup that Podkletnov had established or with other setups that, for example, were more pulsed based, like Claude Power's example of a pulsed superconductors and so on. I will say, though, that it is, and I really mean this in the sincerest way, there were attempts at replications and they were not successful because certain conditions were not met. Now, I do believe, in my humble view, there are much better approaches to take than the Podkletnov spinning disk. But if those results were able to be replicated, they would certainly indicate that there is a there. And I can say for certain that, in my humble view, there is most certainly a connection with rotation, torsion. There was something a long time ago I saw on the internet that the Soviets called gravitational rotation. They had deemed that, Einstein's general relativity model was considered a static model at best, and that, the ether or the quantum vacuum should be viewed more as a fluid-like substance and should be treated as a real physical entity, if
Key point right there for sure.
you will. And so I think that Podkletnov spurred a lot of his experiment, or at least the claims of his experiment, springboarded a lot of people like Ning Li. And I personally believe that Ning Li had a significant amount of success, which is why her stuff went classified. And that could be for a different conversation. But I think that Podkletnov's initial experiments were conceptually appropriate to motivate people, but just because they didn't work in replication doesn't mean that people shouldn't be looking at torsion and superconductors, in my opinion. Now, there have been rumors that some people have successfully replicated his results, but I've yet to interact with any of those people on a direct level.
You know what I always think about when I think about the spinning superconductor thing is I think about Eric Laithwaite, and I think about the Veritasium recreation. Veritasium, very popular YouTuber. I think he's got like 20 million subscribers in physics. And he did the fact check or the Mythbusters thing on it, and basically took this spinning 40-pound weight, I think, on the end of a stick. I think it's like a 40-pound weight at the end of a stick. So you can't lift that up, right, with one hand unless you're like really well, fit. And you just spin it around, and I don't know exactly the RPM. But all of a sudden, now you can just lift it over your head with one hand. As long as you're like moving it in the direction of the motion of the spin, you can do it really easily. And I always think about that because I remember his answer is, well, yes, it's real, but it's just normal physics, right? It's just normal physics. And I always laugh at that because I go, yeah, everything is normal physics. So gravity manipulation is also normal physics, right? It's just like it's all in the math that's already there. It's like there's just a little recipe missing. There's just like a little thing missing. I would say if we add Sal, his whole thing is charged matter, right? The movement of charged matter.
Well,
manipulation of gravity. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yes, as a matter of fact, Eric Laithwaite, I think throughout the mid to late 70s and certainly throughout the 80s, he was going around giving speaking engagements in which he was emphasizing the notion of anomalous effects with rotating gyroscopes, without question. It's unfortunate that a lot of his work was suppressed. I think that guy should have been put in way more, many more, you could say, scientific halls of fame, if you will. But I believe that without question, there is something mysterious with regards to gyroscopic rotation. There have been people in the past that have tried to conflate or deliberately confuse people, although the people I'm referring to now have since passed away. They were trying to say, well, there was investigation into gyroscopic rotation, but that has nothing to do with anti-gravity. And I would very respectfully push back on that and say that the two are very much interconnected, very much so, especially when you consider the notion that, yes, it was a rudimentary experiment, but it was a proof of concept nonetheless, that when he spun that gyroscope around him, he was able to he was in fact able to make the gyroscope was much lighter. He was able to lift it above his head very easily.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. I think that the lesson that people need to learn is that there, like, a lot of physicists and scientists and engineers have been out there working on this stuff, and they've been doing it since, I mean, even the 40s, 50s, 60s. And that's the main topic I wanted to get to tonight or today. So if just in case people are just tuning in right now, Salvatore Pais is having technical difficulties with his audio and his video on both of his computers today. So I think he's trying to restart right now. If that doesn't work out, I'll reschedule with Sal and potentially bring Dave back to do some questions together. But without him, I'm going to keep going, and I want to talk about, because I wanted to ask you the same questions I want to ask Sal about. I mean, I think that you guys have been watching some of my live streams, so you can kind of predict what some of these questions are going to be.
Sure.
But I want to ask them in a little bit more fun way. Let's go back to UFOs. In the UFO community, in the lore, there is this big connection between nuclear weapons and UFOs.
Right.
There's this idea.
This is what I want to get into more deeply.
That I think it was his name's Bob Robert. What's his last name? Forgetting it. Crap. I met him in person too. But so like there's idea that UFOs are turning off nukes. What do you think the connection is between UFOs and nukes?
Sure. So I'll get right into explaining. This may take a few minutes to explain, but I'll come full circle on it. We know that there's been discussion over the decades, and again, it's been considered fringe. Some will call it seminal, depends on who you're asking, with regards to, oh yes, even Robert, I think Salas, yes.
Bob Salas, yeah.
Right. And so I would say that when it comes to that aspect, it's interesting because in engineering, we know that there are certain phenomena that exist where if you were to take the electric and magnetic fields and sum those fields to zero, classically we're told that nothing occurs. But when certain conditions are met under those parameters, you actually get this other type of force in which is they're like electromagnetic sound waves, but they're not electromagnetic when you measure them. It's a little counterintuitive. Now, the reason I bring all of this up is because it's been proposed that that leads to the generation of what's been called longitudinal scalar waves. And there have been some papers published that have shown proof of concept that, you know, these alleged scalar waves do actually have a physical force, even though they can't be measured classically. It's possible that when nukes are released, the nukes release a significant amount of longitudinal scalar waves that for sure at this point we know about as humans, but many decades ago, World War II likely didn't or had vague understanding of it. And it's possible that those waves interfere with other aspects of our reality that we've yet to technologically uncover.
I'm on board with that.
And it's possible that maybe if there are non-humans, it's possible that they are pretty ticked off with us using weapons that basically release certain type of wave functions and waves that we don't, and fields that we can't even pick up yet, because to us these things don't exist because they can't be measured. Well, we're only as good as the measuring devices that we build. And so I think that there's a connection there and I believe, of course, the radiation is terrible too, and everything that we do know about the nuclear bombs and weapons is absolutely the power is terrifying. But I do think there are additional forces that are generated every time a bomb goes off, more so with hydrogen thermonuclear bombs than anything else, that really upsets potential non-humans, or maybe even humans in hiding that know about these type of energy fields that simply we haven't, at the time decades ago, we're not measuring when we tested the bombs.
Yeah, you see, that's the I think the popular perspective. The popular perspective is we're interfering with the aliens and their mode of transportation could be one thing, right? And first of all, let me just say, are scalar waves gravitational waves? Are those synonymous?
You can say that there's an overlap, because you could say that these waves are all these longitudinal scalar waves, vector and scalar potential waves. They are resistant to they have no resistance to inertia. And if you were to amplify those fields using resonance, you may realize that the power coming from it is actually cold and not hot, and then that overlaps into room temperature superconductivity and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So My view is that I have a different perspective, which that's
Sure.
probably, I think that's correct. I think there's just more than one reason.
Please, I'd love to hear what you
If
think.
the
Yeah.
aliens came down and were like, "Hey, chill out, guys," like that
Right,
would
right.
make sense. Is like, oh, the nukes are messing with space time the same
Right.
way that the alien ships are flying around. But then I take that to the next level and I go, wait a minute, that means nukes are UFOs to some degree. They're using the same type of, maybe it's different, a crude approximation. It's like, okay, we're figuring out transportation. We're starting with the horse and now we're moving on to our car. Now we're building a Ferrari, right? And that's like what we're doing with nukes.
Right.
And before I let you opine on that, here's the thing that seems obvious to me now is, of course, nukes are manipulating space-time. Like, I don't know how this hasn't been more obvious in retrospect. If you ask Grok or if you ask the physicists, they'll say, no, it's not getting to the energy levels that are high enough. Like, we have so many orders of magnitude higher that they have to get. But if you look at the concept of a thermonuclear device, we are detonating a fusion implosion in our thermonuclear. You could say, yes, in the conventional A-bomb, which is a release of energy,
right,
you're never going to have significant space-time manipulation because your energy is always becoming more and more diffuse.
Right.
So if your original thing wasn't manipulating space-time, then converting it to energy also won't manipulate space-time.
Right.
But space-time manipulation is all about energy density, right? It's all about energy density. So if I take, let's just say, my phone right here, right? The amount of energy I've got in this phone, and I want to convert this to energy from mass. Well, if I want to increase the energy density, then I compress it down, right? The more I compress this down, the more the energy density goes up. Like that's
right. Yeah.
Right. So then when I think about, okay, well, what were they trying to do with the hydrogen bomb? Is like, oh, they were trying to create an implosive type of fusion bomb detonation. So now I'm going, okay, well, now this is all that we need is instead of doing the A bomb, we just needed the H bomb and we need the compression. And if you start with enough or you compress your atoms down enough, then theoretically you should be able to get to whatever energy densities you need, presumably get to a black hole. Do you agree with that?
I would say that I agree with most of it. The one thing that I would humbly add, oh my gosh, there he is. Yes.
Oh, brother
Welcome.
Brother Ashton had the right solution. Sorry, man. From now on, I'll do exactly what you say.
I'm so happy you're here, Sal. Thank you so much.
Bro. Your discussion.
I'm just going to fast forward just a bit.
Payload, imploding their fusion payload to increase energy density. Do you, first of all, so Dave, do you agree with that assessment, or what is your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to say, first off, it's a blast. I'm so happy that Sal was able to make it. Brother, thank you for coming on. And I do want to say now that he is here, I do want to say that what I'm about to answer with does not reflect anything that the Sal does or does not reflect anything of any government. It's my personal opinion. When you asked about the nuclear fusion aspect with regards to amplifying the density, I would agree with you. However, I would add one thing to what you said, which is that in my humble opinion, there needs to be an aspect of that process in which there is a reversal of the entropy in which that system behaves within. And then when that pinching effect occurs, you then may get very cold nuclear radiation instead of hot. And then you with that offset of cold and hot in a vortex-like manner, then maybe you can break that limit. So yes, I'll leave it there.
I'll take it one step further, Brother Ash. Sorry to interrupt your train of thought. I know you're thinking some genial thoughts, but this is important. Breaking the Schwinger limit does something astonishing. It destroys the arrow of time, and that's how time manipulation, especially reverse temporal excursion, can take place. I will.
Do you want to get into the specifically in relation to the science of time? I can recommend someone else has also been on Ashton's channel, which is Roy D. Herbert.
Try to convince you, Brother Ash, because I know you do not believe in travel to the past. But under this, when you break the Schwinger limit, brother, everything goes because you destroy the arrow of time, number one. Number two, remember Stephen Hawking? He takes in his chronology protection conjecture. He allows for the arrow of time not to be disturbed. That's why those things are, once you break the Schwinger limit, forget about it. Anything goes. Travel to the past is feasible, but you must first break the Schwinger limit. Give me 10 minutes at the end of this podcast. Whenever you have time, I'll give you the mathematical formalism of time travel to the past. A time machine, gentlemen. A time machine to the past.
So
And
let
by
me
the way,
ask.
fuck causality. Excuse my language. But this idea of cause and effect has always bothered me. This fucking grandfather paradox. Fuck your grandfather.
No, it's not.
You know what?
I agree.
Anything goes the moment you break the arrow of time, brother.
So you think you're
Everything
creating new
goes.
universes then? I mean, that's the only interpretation, right? Or do you have another interpretation? Many universes?
You could argue superimposed timelines within it gets complex. I would say, in my humble opinion, that if you look, for example, at the notion of,
this is where I like it, because Ashen's pretty normie and he's not on board with, I mean, he says he's open to different versions, aliens and UFOs and all of that. But I think that his answer for a lot of this stuff is pretty straightforward. So the ability to time travel, I think, is I think that's why he's got that look on his face.
If you read very, very carefully what Ilya Prigozhin had written, which was that when you have entropy in a system as it fills up, if you can, in an engineering way, which this has been shown, if you can find a way to prevent the entropy within that system from growing, what happens is, it's been observed that there's actually more organization in the system the lower the entropy is. And I would say that would speak to the breaking of the time arrow, and also
almost like the more in touch with the natural way, the less chaos.
So I would mention as well that if you look specifically at the sorry, I just got a brain fart, but the the grandfather paradox. There are a couple professors in the past 20 years that I believe, and I would agree with them, seem to have solved the issue of that paradox, which is that you could go back in time to certain particular points, and then you can what you do in that previous event will superimpose over the present event, and so on and so forth. But anyways,
so I think what you're saying there is more of the, like, whatever you did already always happened, like that, you know. So you could go back, and because there's two ways you could do it, right? Is that one, you can go back in time and you create a new timeline. Therefore, we don't have to worry about how you messed with the first timeline or have you. The other way, which is, spoiler alert, the show's been out there long enough, but the show Dark,
right?
The show Dark is this German show. They have this closed loop time process where you can go back in time, and in fact, now this is really getting spoilery. You can create your own universe, right? You can create your own self-contained universe loop as long, and I think even John Kramer.
I don't really like either of these solutions, and it also gets into the natural law question on objective reality when timelines or nodal points in timelines are shifting too.
Talks about this is like time travel's allowed so as long as the loops are closed. So
closed loop temporal manipulation, right? I would say personally,
Let me just
John
give an
Kramer
example
is
for
a
the
genius,
audience.
brother. John Kramer is a genius. The transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics will one day not only prove extremely viable, but remember, he really uses Bohmian mechanics. He truly is a great student of Bohm. Bohm would be incredibly proud of this man. I would love to meet him. We should all try to meet him one day.
And Aronhoff agreed too. Aronhoff recently did an interview with what's his face, Kurt Jarmungal, and said straight up he thinks that like time is moving in two directions, and then it's meeting. I'm going, well, that's the transactional interpretation right there.
Well, think of the one electron theory with Feynman and the notion of fractals, right? If you can, maybe it's possible you can make a little universe because it's a fractal of a larger one. Just a thought.
And that speaks to what I think you've said and Dr. Hal Puthoff has said about if you go inside of a UFO, it could be the different size on the inside than it appears to be on the outside, right? Is that would be kind of an idea of how that would work. So just to give people an example of how a closed time loop might work, closed time loop would be a situation where like I give myself the Nobel. I give myself a award-winning book, right, that makes me famous. I'm in the future. I go give younger Ashton an award-winning book, or future Ashton comes back and gives younger Ashton the MH370 videos, right? And then I get older, and who gave Ashton, the younger Ashton, the videos? I did. So I have to invent time travel, go back in time, and hand myself the other book. And as long as I do that, well, then the question is, who wrote the book? Who made the videos? Nobody did. Nobody made them. But that's a closed time loop, and that works as long as the loop just keeps continuing like that. So I hope that's not the case. But the reason why that scares me a little bit is that any form of that time travel being real would absolutely justify.
He who controls time controls everything else.
Wouldn't justify anything in terms of transgressions against natural law.
It's possible. It's like the Schrodinger's cat, where you gave yourself the award, but you also didn't at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
very, or like I wrote the book, but who wrote the book, right? That I gave back to myself. I never wrote it. So who gave me that book? Like,
and if I can mention to what Brother Sal said, the ruling of time, I'm paraphrasing here, but the very famous quote that Oppenheimer liked to quote, which was, "I am death, the destroyer of worlds." I've come across some research recently that suggests the original translation was actually, "I am time, the destroyer of worlds."
Oh my God. Oh my God. There's a great American poet that says time is the fire in which we burn.
Yes.
And this is an old Hermetic idea.
Yes.
Very important. We do not, Brother Ash, Brother Rossi, we do not understand the nature of time. I truly believe time is a type of energy field which prevents everything from happening at once. It is not your idea, for example, of just a physical interpretation of the ruling of clocks.
Right.
And since we are on the topic of time, I know I said at the end of the pod, but I'm rolling here and the juices are flowing. Just let me give you this, okay? We already discussed part of it, but I will recap for your followers and your subscribers. Both of you guys are great, by the way. And you, Ash, both Brother and Rossi and I agree, you are formidable. I would hate to piss you off, ever. So disregard that ever from happening. That's a solemn promise, brother. You're my brother, just like Brother Rossi. You two are my blood brothers. Anybody that goes against the trio, the triarchy of greatness, fuck them. Now, okay, let me go back to this is reverse temporal excursion, the idea of the possibility of going back in time. And not just sending communication back. Now, we're talking about physically affecting the temporal structure. It involves the breaking of the Schwingle element. Why? That is the only way you could circumvent the great Stephen Hawking. His chronology protection conjecture is based on the arrow of time. The only thing that can destroy the arrow of time is the breaking of the Schwingle element. This formalism is based on it. The whole idea starts simple. Again, Occam's razor, simplicity and minimalism. Time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency. Again, the great Nikola Tesla said everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And by the way, Brother Ash said this like 2 pods ago. I'm plagiarizing a bit. Sorry. Now, what I'm about to say, time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency. It could be frequency of spin or frequency of vibration. Against the mathematics is similar. With one, I wouldn't say minor exception, but remember, in spin you deal with a radius of spin, and in vibration you deal with the amplitude of vibration. That's the main. Other than that, the mathematics seems to be very similar between spin and vibration, up to a point. Now, what is important is, again, time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency. Take the chain rule. You do the chain rule on the simple, again, you differentiate with respect, let's call it a quantum of time for, a DDT of some sort. That DDT is really a delta tau, if you like to think of it as a quantum of time. I just like this idea that matter may be confined energy, frozen within a quantum of
Get ready for some maths.
time. bound within fluctuating fields of energy.
Maybe all of reality is a room temperature superconducting state to some extent.
Macroscopic quantum coherence.
Right.
It's a microscopic quantum phenomena. But again, time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency. You take the chain rule of that based on a DDT. Simple. This is simple differential calculus. We're talking about first year of undergrad. You take the chain rule based on that will give you a constant. Most likely it's going to be dimensionless. So let's call it tau sub s times the delta of frequency divided by frequency squared. You see how it's dimensionally inconsistent. Again, time being on the order of 1 divided by frequency. Check the dimensions. Always check the dimensions. The first thing you do. That's the first thing they teach us in engineering. If a formula does not give correct units, no good. Start all over again. Now, so again, minus delta t. So out of the chain rule comes this minus delta t. So the whole idea is it part of the mathematical formalism? Is it, again, the great Dirac believed in the beauty of true mathematics. He believed in mathematical physics, that the ability of mathematics to influence physics, but physics must also influence the mathematics. Hence the second step. So the first step, you get from the chain rule of the simple time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency. From the chain rule, you get minus delta t equals to a dimensionless constant, say tau sub s, times delta frequency divided by frequency squared. Dimensionally consistent. Check it for yourselves. Also your followers. Now, what I'm about to say about tau of s will require your followers to do a little mathematics. And again, use your ability to think engineering here. How would you make this happen? How would you break the Schwinger limit and affect this quote unquote miraculous phenomena of reverse temporal excursion? Again, this minus delta t speaks to the reverse temporal excursion. This tau of s is equal to 10 to the 25 times epsilon 0 divided by sigma sub s squared, close parenthesis, open parenthesis.
How big is Dave Rossi's head?
1 ratio r sub s divided by r sub omega. It's as simple as that, gentlemen. Now, your followers and your subscribers should look into what is this ratio. I'll leave it up to them. What is this ratio? Based on everything we've talked about, and we've talked about this time is on the order of 1 divided by frequency several occasions. But this is the equation. This is the mathematical formalism of reverse temporal excursion. Study this equation. It's simple, extremely simple. Again,
what's the implications of the equation?
Say
it one more time and then give us the
okay.
Either tell us what it means or give us the implication, because it's too many numbers for me to do in my head.
again, I will recap the equation one more time. Please. And I will say it distinctly. Minus delta t equals equals this tau of s, which is a dimensionless constant.
Okay, constant.
Times delta omega divided by omega square, close parenthesis. This tau of s equals 10 to the 25, and I will tell you what the 10 to the 25 is. We've discussed it already. 10 to the 25 times, Rossi, epsilon 0 divided by sigma sub s squared, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, the ratio, r sub s divided by r sub omega, close parenthesis. Gentlemen, this is the mathematical formalism of reverse temporal excursion. We have a time machine to the past because the Schwinger limit, by breaking the Schwinger limit, the arrow of time is destroyed. Hence, Stephen
Reversed temporal excursion, you reckon?
Hawking's idea of the chronology protection conjecture no longer applies. Now, 10 to the 25 represents joules per meter cube. And hence, it will give you an idea about. One more thing I will say, that epsilon zero, you know it well, Ashton. Dave Rossi is like, it's the electrical permittivity of free space. That sigma sub s is the surface charge density. Your followers and subscribers should figure out of what. It's essential. I bet you Dr. Rossi over there knows. All right. I bet you Dr. Forbes knows as well. Dude, we're all doctors. That's it. I have the ability to do that. So there you go. You're both PhDs. Oh, shit. Let me go back just one more.
Sure.
I'm here as an engineer of the United States Navy, and I've worked for the United States Space Force as well. But these ideas, these wild ideas, are my own and do not represent neither the opinions nor the statements of the United States Navy nor the United States Space Force. So hopefully they refer to that disclaimer. Okay, brother Ashton, you can ask anything you want.
Well, now we've got everybody here. Now it's time. Is this a thermonuclear weapon that we are witnessing in this video? Since this is you're a free, you're not, you're here on your own accord, giving your own personal opinions. Nobody here is giving any official opinions based on any militaries. But I've got to say, I think this is a thermonuclear weapon, although I think I can say it's an unconventional fourth generation thermonuclear weapon. The reason why I say that is that plasma is technically not a fission detonator. It would be a non-fission detonator, I believe. I've learned a lot about thermonuclear weapons, by the way. And we're looking at this triangle formation, which is consistent with pulse shaping, which is like wave shaping. You need all your waves to converge at the right pinnacle moment, at the right pinnacle location at the exact same time. And I can't stop thinking about it because one of the other things in thermonuclear weapons is computers. One of the first things I ever mentioned about these was like AI and like how we might these orbs, all this stuff must have like super advanced computers going on as well. And turns out when we first developed computers, it was also based on nukes. Like, I mean, sure, they probably had the idea of computers before that, but that's what we were using them for in the early stages. And John Kramer admitted that one of the things that they use quantum computers for is nuclear calculations. So let's start with Sal, since Sal just jumped in. Sal, what do you think, man? Do you think that this is a thermonuclear weapon? Do you think that's a fourth generation?
Brother, I hope we also speak about directed electronic warfare devices, which I believe China employed one right before President Xi met with President Trump. And it's from one of the things President Trump actually said on Air Force One to the press that I deduced that. When he said bad fuel issues, it's posed directly to more electric engine technology, which is used on modern jets. One of them was a jet fighter, so fixed wing. The other one was a helo, so rotary. It's the perfect statement, basically saying we have a directed electronic warfare device that can disable and basically destroy your both rotary and fixed wing aircraft. Hence, be careful with Taiwan, ... This was a message. I truly believe that. So again, just like that was a directed electronic warfare device, I truly believe that. Remember, we're talking about China here. We're talking about the Michel satellite. We're talking about quantum communications. We're talking about the ability to have, as you well know, Dr. Ashton, Forbes, right there, you well know that they have quantum radar. Do you know that quantum radar is truly the brainchild of a great mind, Marco Lanzagorta of Naval Research Laboratory? Circa the year 2000, he came up with this idea of quantum radar. They thought of it like sci-fi. They give him.
For those that are unaware, there was a recent academic paper talking about the release, talking about how China has got quantum radar for quantum communications and quantum tunneling. Now, some speculate that China only announces what they have based on what the West has already announced that they have. So the speculation would be that China's far more advanced than that. But the context here is that a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a bit more now, but they released an article, an academic paper about quantum radar.
Minimal money to play around with it. Meanwhile, the Chinese took all the pamphlets, translated it to Chinese, and what? In 20 years, they have quantum radar. So the ability to render all stealth aircraft that we know of obsolete.
Yeah, the quantum radar thing is honestly mind-blowing to see that, like, it had been talked about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, as China was going to work on it. And the new news recently was that now they're mass producing it for all their fighter jets.
That's unbelievable.
And I mean, quantum radar, when you even look at it, says it uses an EPR device. Literally says it uses an EPR device.
Not only that, it's resistant to all manner of electromagnetic jamming. So while we would have to invent to take care of the EPR paradox, and gentlemen, little light bulbs are lighting all around. I hope our best and brightest are working on this as I speak. Is a Q jammer, a quantum jammer, something that affects.
I've been wondering too, is that because so you kind of danced around the question, but you did say that you think that it might be
it's a directed weapon, sir. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. This is, but I believe they took it a step further. I think that they used the ideas behind the fourth generation thermonuclear device and coupled it with autonomous AI units, room temperature superconductivity, possibly the existence already of AGI. I don't know what else to call these.
And this is where we get into AI being the digital control grid and the work of Catherine Austin Fitts and Whitney Webb, and using the national security of nuclear to hide that these AI data centers and the digital control grid are going to be powered by AI and zero-point energy.
I mean, maybe not AGI, but something extremely close, something that has the ability, let's call them AI agents for now, possibly sub-AGI, but they're definitely autonomous. Remember the last
And then we also get into which version of AI, again, some speculate that there's ancient AI, which has always been here, and then there's newer form of it.
When they compress the space-time continuum at a quantum level, energy density, again, speaking of energy density, that 10 to the 25 is joules per meter cube, which is necessary, is the energy density in order to break the Schwinger limit, 10 to the 25 joules per meter cube. You understand what these three freaking orbs are able to deposit in that small area? What are these? Of course, they would have to be based on something thermonuclear in origin, but it's far above that. There is, it's like a hybrid device. This could be hybrid technology, gentlemen.
It makes you wonder because, like, I think they figured this out in the 60s. We signed the Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in 1963, right after the Ripple Project. Like, it's like, oh, and John Knuckles brags about, we found how to make super high yield, super high gain, clean fusion bombs, but we never tested it, never did it after the Ripple Project, at least. And now we're banning everybody else from doing it. And then it makes you wonder, okay, well, that was 1963. And now, what have we done for 60 years?
If I could jump in quickly to add to what Brother Sal said, if we have, for example, we have a direct energy weapon here, and in the example, here's the plane, for instance, it's possible the technology they are using is set up such that, again, in between that the emitter and the plane, if you actually took electromagnetic measuring equipment, you would not get any electric or magnetic current readings. However, what happens to the plane, the result of what occurs in the plane is electromagnetic. So the transfer of the energy is perhaps occurring at a different level or layer of reality, but the actual effect is still electromagnetic in the result of what happens to the plane. So again, this is what makes this so interesting, but also dangerous, because you can't detect classically any of the electromagnetic fields as the waves would be traveling.
Yeah, and that's the big thing about these quantum devices, right, that use the Ehrenhoff-Bohm effect, is there's no classic electromagnetic signal to detect. And the same reason why you can't jam the radar either, is that there's nothing to get there.
And if I could ask one more thing, I wanted to ask Brother Sal. I'm sort of leading the witness here, brother, but do you think room temperature superconductivity is crucial to the different types of energies and you could say technologies you were discussing?
Quite possibly, but I believe it could be an effect thereof. There's
Gotcha.
something greater that generates
Got you.
this.
Got you.
And I believe that Brother Ash and you and I have all talked about this nonstop, basically. You drive a non-equilibrium plasma, a non-linear medium, far from equilibrium, while still inducing an energy flux within it, which means what? The engineering of the Prigozhin effect.
Can I say so, Sal? I want to say something, and I'm going to say just one sentence, and then I'm going to stop. Privately, I've been looking at the slew rate in high voltage transients.
Oh my God, Charles Proteus Steinmetz. Speaking of which, Brother Ash, we got to talk about the plasma disruption fusion weapon. That's really based on the plasma compression fusion device, with a little added. Let's call it a Z pinch with a fusion twist.
Those are my favorite words.
And sorry, very quickly, Sal, your work
like a drink. We should have that drink, you know.
Sal, brother, your work, Sal, on high voltage transients is incredible. By the way, thank you.
It's not mine, brother. I'm. Trust me. We're talking about Tesla combined with Gabriel Krohn combined with Charles Proteus Steinmetz.
Right.
Those last two are amazing, gentlemen. Some of their works you cannot find.
I know.
At all. And there's a book by Krohn that is like $5,000, but you can find it.
You can
find it. If you wanted to buy it, you couldn't find it. So anyway,
yes.
Priceless.
All these books, like if you want some of these people's textbooks, like you got to
Gabriel.
A lot of them aren't available on the internet.
Gabriel Krohn's model for a space-time metric was very interesting. He viewed the space-time metric as one big circuit.
One big system.
But that's why he did his rotating electrical machinery. Gentlemen, the Nobel Prize in 2025, the one on macroscopic quantum tunneling. Right. They use look at the circuit that they actually use. They use an inductor and a capacitor in series. Hence, frequency vibration. Frequency vibration on the order of 1 divided by square root of LC.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Brother Sal. I thought we weren't going to say. Okay, so it's an LC circuit. Yeah.
And I mean, if you just look at what a qubit is, I mean, a qubit's just Josephson junction. It's just two Josephson junctions forming a squid, or a Josephson junction forming a squid, and then connected to a capacitor with a pulse current through it. Like, wait, what? That's all. When I figured that out, I'm like, wait.
Here's another thing.
Again, simplicity and minimalism. All the greats have based their ideas on Occam's razor. If it's too complex, fuck it, it won't work.
Right, I agree. If I can mention, Ashton, this is for you and your audience. I want to mention, I know Brother Sal knows all about this, but if you took, for example, we know about Josephson junctions. You have a superconductor, an insulator, then another superconductor. Okay, there's another phenomena you can invoke that combines the squid phenomena with the Aronoff-Bohm effect. It's simple. If you take a superconductor and then a normal piece of metal instead of an insulator, and then another superconductor beside it, you actually get Aronoff-Bohm phase modulation effects just by pulsing the junctions with voltage.
Really?
Yeah, which has some very profound implications.
I don't want to go on too many side tangents here, but I have been talking with Randall Mills as well. I find brilliant light power to be really interesting. He's got this hydrino theory that's very analogous to negative energy.
This is also Catherine Austin Fitz knows this person,
and like lowering the hydrogen state,
or knows someone that has been invested in that project since the beginning, or something similar. And it was mentioned on Tucker Carlson.
Below the ground state.
Yeah.
And he sent me a paper. He sent me like a bunch of papers after I was messaging him.
Well, we know that there's been production of anomalous hydrogen in low energy nuclear reaction experiments. They can't.
Yeah, and he talked about low energy nuclear reaction, and the common theme I've seen is vibration amongst all these things. And I mean, Sal just mentioned the equations for time and relationship to frequency as well.
Not just vibration. Brother Ash, this is key. Accelerated vibration. Again, you drive your system far from equilibrium. This is key. You
And if I
drive
can
a non-linear system far from equilibrium.
with if I could say quickly, with pulsed high voltage transients. And yeah, I'll maybe I'll say something about that in a moment, because I know it's on the internet already, but I'm just going to think about it for a second. But please carry on.
Well, let's go back. Let's lower our level down now, so we're not super in the math physics forever, because I know there's just normal people that are watching too. Let's go back, talk about the orbs for a second, because AI definitely, in my opinion, I think the only question is, are we dealing with a AGI, or is it more of like what Sal was talking about?
Autonomous
about
AI.
machine intelligence, right? But like you look at how these orbs are flying around, and it's gotta have complex math going on for 3D vectoring through the sky. And even if without that, the equations, like the whole thing about reaching the Schwinger limit, and the whole thing for why people don't think nukes can manipulate space-time is that we need this huge amplification of energy, massive amplification of energy. The math must be perfect, right? Like we need the orbs to be perfectly equilateral when they're converging on each other, and it can't be off at all. If it's off by even a little bit, then the amplification doesn't work correctly, right? Like it needs to be, and that's what all the physics and stuff around thermonuclear weapons is all about. It's all about figuring that out and using these super powerful computers. So to me, it seems really obvious that we must have really advanced secret computers, potentially to the idea, even to the level of them being almost sentient. I even wonder, and I don't really think this is a high probability, but I think there's some chance that we have like a defense system that's like AI already.
Well, if I could say quickly, Ken Shoulders predicted in the early 2000s, he wrote a paper that he predicted in the future, he foresees the ability to create an electrical circuit purely with a plasma, Bose-Einstein condensate, and photons, nothing else, and vibration. No actual solid wires or anything.
And that's what I think that the orbs are doing. I think they're creating a quantum circuit. They're creating a circuit, but they're doing it, with the plane, and the plane's the null point. And I guess my bigger concern, though, is that more and more that I talk to you guys, more and more I research, if that's a thermonuclear weapon, like what's really even happening? Like what's even happening in a wormhole? Like are the people inside being annihilated? Are they being heated up? Or does like the space-time manipulation supersede the heating up of the plane? Could that come out in one piece? Is it coming out in multiple pieces? What do you guys
talking
think?
about a craft?
We would have to perform the experiment in order to find out. Remember that experiment trumps theory every time.
Well, you know what's scary about that is that I sit there and I go, are they testing this out? Like, is this an experiment? Like, of course you don't have to experiment on a civilian airliner, but like, imagine it's collateral damage anyway. Imagine you're going to run an op on a plane anyway, and you're going to hit it with a missile, and you're like, you know what? Let's just hit it with our super space-time manipulation weapon and just see what happens. Like, do you think there's a possibility that could be in play?
Brother, I have a feeling. Sorry, Brother Rossi.
No.
Before it's a quick interruption, but it's something based on Brother Ash said. I have a feeling these computers may be hybrid biological based, not just silica. We're not talking about silica sentience here. We're talking about possibly neuron based sentience.
You think it might be that advanced where there's already biological?
Yes, 100%. 100%. This may not be silica based. It could be a hybrid thing. Yeah.
Well, what's weird about that is that some of those DIRDs, or I think it's one of the DIRDs,
Epstein and Atlantis, everyone
talks about, maybe it's not the DIRDs, but somehow Pudov related thing, how many like drones a human mind can control at once.
Wow.
That one really bugs me because it's the one paper that sticks out from the rest.
And we'll get into the mind control stuff and the Catherine Austin Fitts to do with the manipulation of the brain technology as well.
It was the brain machine interface one.
Yeah, the brain machine interface.
We know that Don Phillips, he died. He's
Internet of Bio Nano things.
Passed away now, but Don Phillips was former Air Force, CIA, Lockheed, Skunk Works, the whole thing. He openly said in the early 2000s that I believe the company is now defunct, but it was called Light City International LLC. He claimed at least that at the time they were already working on craft in the 80s that they could control with their thoughts. That's what he claimed at least.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
hard for me to
but,
believe it, but at the same time, why not? I mean, if I'm saying that an AI is controlling the orbs and getting them to spin perfectly like that, then what's the difference between that or like a hybrid human biological, or just even maybe human?
Right.
You believe in remote viewing, you believe in psychic powers. I mean,
Right. No, to
believe
your
in
point, he claimed it. I wasn't there. I can't say for sure, but that's what he claimed at least.
yeah. So I just want to recap a couple things that we've been talking about. One is Don Phillips. There's a video out there where he's talking about seeing 3 like orbs spinning around and then coalesce. He says his words and then disappear
at Groom Lake.
At Wright-Patterson.
Or Wright-Pat, sorry.
Yeah. And then the other thing we were mentioning, Sal was mentioning a recent incident. I posted about it on Twitter from a couple of weeks ago, where 2 U.S., I think a helicopter and a plane both crashed within like 30 minutes of one another in the South China Sea. And Trump, the excuse that was given was bad fuel. Just like, what? What does that mean? How many planes got the bad fuel? How did we figure out that it was bad fuel so quickly?
Well, if I could say quickly, it's kind of like when
it was a show of strength, brother. It was a show of strength right before trade deal. It was a coup de grace by one of the greatest diplomats of all time.
And if I could,
Xi of China.
Yes. And if I can mention as well, I'm not saying that I know this for a fact, but I speculate that when you look, for example, I think it was earlier this year or last year when the former supreme leader of Iran, when his helicopter mysteriously crashed. The timing of that seemed to me like someone was sending them a message. But again, I don't have the facts. So this is my speculation.
Yeah, the hard part with this is like, and I'm curious of your guys' opinion, especially on this, is like why I'm careful about sharing some of this stuff is like when you know what's possible, it's pretty easy to be like, that helicopter going down when there was 2 other helicopters and there was like no bad weather, just randomly going down. That's pretty crazy. Or, I mean, this incident too, I got to agree with Sal, like,
coincidence.
Bad fuel's a bad excuse. Yeah. And for just planes, like military planes, just go down. Like
but bad fuel speaks to more electric issues,
right?
Which is what they use in their engines,
right? Right.
I mean, it's hard, and anyway, I think this is where
and how do you affect an electric engine, a directed electronic warfare device. And
this is where we have to be careful, right?
Because I'd put it in a satellite in a polar orbit, and I'd have a constellation of these, 6 of them to be more exact. But anyway, all right.
And this is where we have to be careful, though, because I mean, we talk about physics and science that is, in my opinion, highly credible and
maybe
real.
Sorry, maybe the satellites are in a rosette geometry. Who knows?
Oh my God! Yeah.
But this is where Tom Bearden got in trouble, right? Because he starts talking about making earthquakes.
Oops.
Well, we know there was a newspaper article back in the 1930s that I can pull up after the show if you want to show to your audience, Ash, if you want, in which there was speculation in New York City that Nikola Tesla at the time was making the ground shake in all over the place.
With a mechanical oscillator, brother.
Right.
Which shows you we do not truly understand our physics. He did it with a simple pressure-driven mechanical oscillator.
You know the article I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And he had to break the damn thing. He had to take a hammer to it.
Yes.
Because the building was about to go down anyway.
Yeah. No,
Resonance.
Let's talk geopolitics then. Let's get controversial here. So what are your guys' takes on the Iran situation? And the reason I bring this up is we've been talking about nukes, and we recently...
This is what I'm interested in, because how real is the war with Iran and the whole nuke thing if there's zero-point energy-related technology with weaponry?
Our B2, I think it was our B2s, flew over there to Iran. They shot some bunker bombs that can shoot through the ground and get to the bunkers underneath and destroyed their facilities. And at the same time, the Mossad assassinated 9 Iranian nuclear scientists while they were sleeping simultaneously using supposedly some type of experimental weapon. I mean, that's just reported. We don't know. And I'll tell you guys my view first, because I've been getting a lot of very controversial over this, is that if we're right, everything we're talking about, if we're right about like anything we're discussing here, then nobody else can have this. I mean, especially if we're talking about manipulating time, especially if we're talking about...
Yeah, But what if they weren't if America, if you want to talk about America or the private companies related to it, if it's already beyond a particular government, or they weren't the first to have it, or multiple parties have had it for a long time.
I think those engineers, those nuclear engineers, they were probably talking about more stuff like what we're talking about in their free time, not really about how to make an A-bomb, which is like, something from 1940s. So I think it becomes a very difficult question to ask, is where's the line in national security and committing violent acts, admittedly, to protect potentially time manipulation technology, free energy technology, at a bare minimum.
Well,
hydrogen bombs, right?
Sure. If I could say very quickly, just forgive me, Sal. I always want you to speak first. I apologize.
No, go ahead, sir. No, please.
Just before it leaves my mind, I know that back in the I think it was the 1960s or 70s, or maybe before, there was something called the Entebbe situation, where it was the first time Israel took their soldiers to go rescue some other Israelis, and I think Netanyahu's brother was on that mission or something like that. Long story short, there's a newspaper article that I have that I can send to you as well, Ashton, in which there was an inventor out of Toronto, Canada, who was using mechanical oscillation to essentially, what he didn't mean to do this, but he was experimenting with LC circuits and mechanical oscillations in his basement. And the article says that he was visited by some other scientists, and the time on their watches was speeding up unexplainably. And so, long story short, it was stated in that paper that the Israeli government had heard about this gentleman. They bought the device off of him, and then allegedly one of the Israeli officials had hinted that rescue mission used that device to some extent. And this is all on paper from the Toronto Star newspaper that I can send you a copy of, and this was back in the 60s or 70s. So it makes you wonder, if they had rudimentary understandings back then, what have they built it up to now? In terms of your question about grand geopolitics, I'm still observing from the perspective of a chessboard, and I don't even claim to know all the pieces on the board. So it's hard for me to say this or that. It's difficult. I see someone gets taken, a leader gets taken out. I look, okay, what's the consequences? What caused that? What's next? It's not good that people die, but it's this, I can't control it. So that's the best way I view it.
What about you, Sal?
I'm under the auspices of the Hatch Act, which makes it easy, because I can always use that excuse. But put it this way, gentlemen, when it comes to these kind of ideas, in my opinion, keep them to paper and pen. Don't attempt certain experiments, because I'll tell you right off the bat, if you can affect such physics to happen, what is to say that detectors of such effects do not exist already?
Well, if I can mention very quickly, I'm going to say something here that is very possibly controversial, but it's the best. I think it's the best place to say it, and I encourage your audience, Ashton, to research this. So I'm speaking to Ashton's audience directly here. I'm going to say a few names, and they're controversial names, but just stick with me here. There was a gentleman many years ago who came out as an alleged Area 51 worker who was alleged microbiologist by the name of Dr. Dan Burish. Now, you can say what you want about who he worked with, these gray aliens. You could say true or false, sure. However, he gave a presentation in 2007 or 8 at Caltech, in which he was looking at longitudinal biophotonics and different types of breakthrough microbiological processes. Long story short, he had discussed how essentially he was studying a certain type of material that was close to Area 51, where UFOs were seen hovering above the sand. And because where he went to go pick up the rocks from, it was not a government property. So he was allowed to pick up the rocks. There was nothing secret there. He starts examining the rocks that the UFOs were seen to levitate on top of. And these rocks are just, rocks from Las Vegas. He starts examining them, and in his Caltech presentation, he shows the rocks are made of rosette structures at their core. Rosette geometries, this sort of quote unquote flower of life stuff that the New Age people talk about. Now, you might think this is crazy, and sure, but bear with me here. If you go look at Dr. Halpudov's vector and scalar potential communication patent, he mentions that in order for the emitters and the receivers to work, the Josephson junctions must be put in a rosette structure. That's all I'm saying. You can think what you want about what Dan Burrish claimed about working with aliens or whatever, but if you look at his Caltech presentation, he emphasizes the recurrence of rosettes.
Flower of Life pattern is actually, there's an AI generated one behind with his background here for Cosmic Surface, but there's also an original one on the pyramids in Egypt.
Structures in these strange rocks that UFOs used to levitate over. And then you connect that 15 years later with Dr. Pudov claiming that your junctions must be in a rosette structure. I don't know. Maybe there's something there, maybe there isn't. That's all I'm saying.
Space-time structure, gentlemen. What speaks to it? The superforce.
Right.
If you can get the superforce to act at dimensions higher than, say, the Planck scale, can you imagine what you could do? Yep. I'm 100% that this is the force of unification, and I'm 100% sure that NHI uses the superforce. They do not use our modalities of transport. They use the superforce but anyway, let's get back to the politics. And one thing I must say, when it comes to our enemies, if we can prevent the mass murder of our own people, I say anything goes, brother.
This is where we've got to pull up. You know, let's get into work of Mark Passio here and order followers in the military, which is what he's a part of. And then anything goes because of the enemies out there. So let's, you know, teleport them, warp them, you know, use temporal weaponry. Not on board.
That's a scary rationalization, though, because when you use that rationalization, you can basically justify anything. You can justify zapping a Boeing 777 out of the sky, or even much worse than that. But that may just be the human. That may just be the human condition.
No,
that just may be the world.
That is not the human condition
that we live in. You know, whoever has the biggest stick is the one who gets to control the planet, I guess.
Social Darwinism is bullshit.
To your point, I want to really briefly mention, you just mentioned the geometry being a significant factor and maybe this vortex motion. That was also seen in Paul Thibodeau's graphene capacitor chip that he made. It was the same thing. He even specifically called out, he said, if you don't make these paths opposite directions in this, you know, circular...
Oh, and he was saying when the diodes were opposing. They have
to be opposing. If they're in the same direction, it just doesn't work at all. Which I just think is like that's such a fundamental
What's up
thing.
with this direction thing? Because that speaks to the Hayasaka Takeuchi experiment. Remember?
And it also
December
speaks...
89 PRL? There's this experiment that basically they spun a gyroscope. And Brother Rossi will contain... let me just introduce the idea. Hayasaka Takeuchi experiment, circa, I think it was published in Physical Review Letters, December 89. They were able to get weight reduction in a spinning gyroscope. They only took it to about 13,000 RPM, if I remember. So we're not talking about 100,000 RPM. We're talking about 13,000 RPM. But as Brother Rossi will talk further, there were certain experiments that followed from prestigious universities, gentlemen. Some of them they publish in PRL, some of them in Nature. Though I think that basically null and void. No such thing. Forget about it. But it's interesting because this weight reduction would only happen in one particular direction. Brother Rossi, to you.
Okay, so two things I'd like to mention very quickly. I'd like to just very quickly finish on the Paul Thibodeau, the opposing directions of the diodes. Again, that may very well speak to the concept of zero-point energy, where you have the two fields collapsing to zero, and some type of phenomena within the crystalline lattice of the graphene is interacting with the local environment, perhaps, or the quantum vacuum or the ether. Now, the Hayasaka Takeuchi experiment, I'm very glad, Sal, you brought that up. I didn't want to bring it up at first because I didn't know.
HT. Hard
Yes,
truths.
yes.
HT,
So
isn't that cool?
this
I
goes
love that.
back to our quick chat, Ashton, about the gyroscopes. And so basically there was two researchers studied that in a vacuum chamber, ultra high vacuum chamber, they rotated a gyroscope on the, I believe it was in the clockwise direction, I believe, and they found that under certain conditions, and I want to mention they weren't just spinning a gyroscope, they were doing a couple other things to the gyroscope. They were a couple other things that people
It was
could do.
electrically driven. And
Yes.
speaking to that, I must, once you're done, let me come in.
Sure.
There's
And
something that I found in an AIAA paper that I sent to Brother Ash and you, and I think Brother Ash already has published it along with the room temperature superconductivity. This one is just about the hybrid aerospace undersea craft. I discussed the physics, the possible physics behind this. Okay, it's all you, sir. I'll shut up.
And so they spun, Hayasaka and Takeuchi, they spun this gyroscope clockwise in an ultra high vacuum chamber. They oscillated it. They applied certain electrical parameters to it, and they found a weight reduction that they could not explain. And they ruled out artifacts because they turned the whole thing upside down to make sure that it wasn't magnetic forces, Lorentz forces. All of that was ruled out. Now, about 5 or 6 other universities around the world, one of them was even a Chinese, Japanese or Chinese, they tried to replicate it, but they did not. They all claimed null results, meaning they found no results. But here's what's interesting. None of them followed the experiment to a T. Some of them replicated the experiment in too low of a vacuum chamber. Others did not use electrodes. Others did not oscillate it. There was very different things. And then they all just said, oh, well, it doesn't work. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to follow the experiment to a T and then try other things to maybe see if you can get other effects. And what were they noticing from all of this? The gyroscope would lose its own weight. The mass reduction.
Yeah, I'm just reading about it right now. I just had AI pull it up, but yeah, they had there was weight reduction that was being
and
measured.
there was a certain woman out of Huntsville, who's, out of respect, I will not name, that I know you followed intensively, who always cited that paper in her private notes as her foundational.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know about that.
Amy Eskridge.
Let me come in quickly.
Yeah,
AIAA paper, AIAA 2017-5343. You already put it. It's just called the hybrid aerospace undersea craft. It's based, on the Pais effect. This craft using an inertial mass reduction device. But it describes the Hayasaka Takeuchi experiment and gives a possible explanation for what happened. Because everybody looked at the mathematical formalism and nobody questioned
Right.
the dimensionless constant that was there.
Yep.
That constant I show in the paper is the Fokker, not Fokker. It's F-O-K, it sounds like it. F-O-K-K-E-R, dash Planck.
Yep.
Thermal equilibration rate.
Yep.
For what? A cold plasma, gentlemen, a non-thermal plasma.
Now imagine, for example, Ashton, that you take that spinning gyroscope in that setup and you find a way to connect a room temperature superconductor to it. So all the electrical current is now cold. And maybe certain phenomena will begin to occur at higher energy levels.
Wow. Well, so, I mean, I've already been convinced for a while, but that probably helps other people. It sounds like I know what I'm going to be reviewing tomorrow on my live stream. So probably going to be that scientific paper, actually. I didn't realize that Amy had been referencing it and that it was referenced in the
her father did as well. Her father referenced it often as well.
By the way, her father just happened to be colleagues with John Slow, the founder of helium fusion. Like, what the hell? How is that a thing? Like, I've just how did I even find that? Oh, because I was looking up John Slow. So I'm like, okay, who are the founders of this helium fusion that's doing aneutronic plasmoid fusion stuff? And I look at his papers. I'm like, okay, what papers has he written? It's like top contributors, Richard Eskridge. Like, what? Yeah, it turns out they were both working on plasma fusion propulsion in the 90s and 2000s with NASA. Like,
also, there's something that a lot of people don't know about too, which is an old experiment done by Einstein called the Einstein-de Haas effect, which was they found what they claimed were macroscopic quantum phenomena when they took an iron core and they coiled it a certain way, and they noticed when they charged the coils, the core would begin to spin as well. And so I'm just looking quickly for a reference here because there's a sentence from that paper I want to mention. So just give me a minute or two if
yeah,
that's
sure.
all right.
And there's two other things, and I want to talk about some other kind of things that are happening in the world. But last political thing would be: do you think that that Israel helped us build this technology?
Well,
I'm gonna
I
play
can
this.
tell you we shared it with America, but I can't share it with you. Okay. The most advanced offensive weapons on the planet, things that none of the superpowers have, developed by Israel, shared with America.
So how do I make that go away? Oh, I think one sec. Oh, here it is. So that
There were three
right
of
there.
them, Ashton. There were three of them. I will start with this. It's a little story, but
No, we got a
trust
story.
me, the names will amaze you. There were three of them. In my opinion, direct line of succession going all the way to the Jasons.
Yeah.
Oh,
three.
that was my next thing.
Vannevar Bush, John Trump,
Yeah.
Edward Teller, the linchpin of everything and all.
And Edward Teller was also the one in
And
19...
he was linked to what particular nation, I'm asked? Anyway.
Well, if I can
Brother,
mention...
some of the greatest scientists of this earth are Jewish. Now, there are a lot of fucking anti-Semitic. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say? I'm sorry. You know, there are a lot of people out there that have a problem with that. They call it Jewish science, blah, blah, blah. Tough, man. Einstein, Pauli, Teller, Feynman. Must I go on? Gross. Keep on naming them, man.
Well, just like in the Oppenheimer movie,
you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely, Oppenheimer movie. Oppenheimer said that one of the reasons he felt they could get ahead was because when Einstein went to Hitler with the ideas of quantum experiments, Hitler dismissed it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
he
so
called
crazy.
it Jewish science.
He called it Jewish
science.
He called it Jewish physics. Yeah, he said I don't want to be involved.
And he
in
took
Jewish
this fucking Nazi called Jourdain something. Supposedly he won the Nobel Prize or something. But anyway, yeah, it's an old. Anyway, yeah.
So you guys think for sure then that, I mean, is that part of the reason why we have this relationship with Israel, is because they help develop super weapons for us that can manipulate space time?
I think it's
some of the greatest brains in physics happen to be Jewish. I don't know. If you want to make the correlation, sure.
I think it's a multitude of reasons. They're so intertwinedly connected, cultural, so on and so forth. But I think, yeah, there's a deep connection there for sure. I did find what I wanted to say very quickly, if I can. This is from, let me read here. So I'll send you this paper, Ashton, if you would like. This is, as a matter of fact, on the NASA website from Richard Eskridge. And I'm just going to read one sentence here. He referenced the Einstein-de Haas experiment, but he said, one second. If the mass of the nucleus, nucleonic diameter, and spin of the nucleus is known, then an effective moment of inertia can be calculated for the nucleus if we are willing to suspend our disbelief regarding the actuality of atomic spin. What does that mean? This suspension of disbelief is required because the calculated surface velocity of the nucleus can easily exceed the speed of light due to the high spin rate.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, the problem is nothing should be able to go faster than the speed of light, but the spin rate would allow it to be able to go faster.
And then he references the Einstein-de Haas paper. I'll put both the papers.
How about actual spin on a small axis or vibration? Oh,
yes.
fuck.
That's what they were getting, but that's why I believe.
Excuse my language. Yeah,
no problem. I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist, but this is why I believe the Einstein-de Haas experiment was not really emphasized in academia after World War II. I only heard of it because of Mr. Richard Eskridge. I didn't hear of it before that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could post a link to that or send it to me later so I can post it, that'd be great.
Sure.
And brother Ash, sorry, just one huge favor. When you go over that stuff tomorrow, also look at the Hawk paper, the first one. You discuss the second one in its entirety, the room temperature superconductor, and God bless you for doing it, because nobody else cares about my work except you and Brother Rossi. Anyway, maybe one day they will.
Can I mention something about the room temperature?
Go ahead.
Sure. I want you to know that I took for fun the other night. I took the exact description from Sal's great patent on the room temperature superconductor, and I put it. Well, I put it in ChatGPT and I put it in Grok. Those two. Now, to be fair, I don't have the professional versions, but I put it in and I said, "Is there any other experiment that you can find on the internet in which something like this was done?" They couldn't find anything similar. They couldn't find anything with the room temperature super. No one said the insulator, this layer, that. The AI at least said to me they couldn't find anything.
Huh. Well, so let me change topics slightly. Not really though, but because it kind of does go back to Teller, and I think which Bush did you mention?
Vannevar Bush. He was the first.
What is he? Father of
he was the
George
first.
H.
I believe
Bush?
He was Majestic One, if you believe in that thing. You know, he was the first. I believe his power went to John Trump. That's why he was sent to do the Tesla paper. And John Trump, you gotta look into this guy.
John Trump
genius.
Well, John Trump is also very close with John Van de Graaff, the inventor of the Van de Graaff machine. And we know the Van de Graaff machine later.
And it makes sense the third one in the sequence would be Edward Teller. Because he's involved with everything.
And we know that John Van de Graaff, we know that he created the Van de Graaff machine, which started the motivation for particle accelerators.
And I think Teller started the Jasons, brother.
I agree. And also there's a paper from 1976 or 1978 by Edward Teller where he says in the title, rotating crystals, rotating capacitors. He says it right there. But in the opening statement, he says, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, we have spent so much time looking for all these new particles that we've basically lost what's been right in front of us. Yeah. He said it in his opening statement.
I think what happened is that in the A-bomb, we had a reevaluation of how secrecy works because too much stuff leaked out. We had to have a dramatic recalibration of how we do weapon secrecy. And I think we took it to its extreme. I think we said, we are never going to let people figure out the next advancement beyond the A-bomb, which happened to be H-bomb, clean H-bombs, fourth generation nukes, now basically making catered, customized thermonuclear weapons that can manipulate space-time. I think we saw that and we built a culture. We built a literal culture of secrecy, where the good old boys club, the people that you just mentioned, and I totally believe Edward Teller started the Jasons because
huge.
It
was in everything. And he was also very political.
Yeah. And the JSONs, if you're not sure what the JSONs are, guys, the JSON is a group of academics, but that are also like connected. And their connection is just like the Manhattan Project. It's like,
and the list is classified. The list is classified.
The members are not known.
Yeah, they're not known. And you can find some of them. I've looked. It's not easy. So this secret group that are basically, if you believe Gary Stevenson, they're all basically professors.
Yeah.
And we were able to figure out like what happens because Gary Stevenson told a story to Tim Ventura about his friend Robert M.L. Baker, who won a Lifetime Achievement Award for gravitational waves in 2011. In the early 2000s, he got written up by Ron Pandolfi of the CIA.
And it was a little too close to China for comfort. Just a little.
So I'll reiterate it. But so the way the story goes is that he said a little bit too much to China about gravitational waves. And so they put it on the agenda to determine whether or not Robert M.L. Baker broke national security by talking a little bit too much to China about gravitational waves.
Then they shut the report down by saying that he was using the inverse Gerstenstein effect, which was not true. But anyways,
So, and what happened was weird. So they basically give him a slap on the wrist because gravitational manipulation, I think we all agree, is definitely real. We're describing it and how we do it here.
Absolutely.
So we know it's real. So why didn't they go crack down on it when they could have? Well, they do this technicality where they go, well, the effect that, the Gerstenstein effect only comes into play at these super high voltages. So whatever he was talking about was too minimal to like actually be significant. That's what they did. And this is
Yeah.
weird because I started
And
digging
sorry,
into
Ashton, they based that interpretation off of the inverse Gerstenstein effect, not the forward moving. Yeah.
Oh, that was why. So here's another little anecdote for you guys. Because, and this is the reason why I totally believe Edward Teller started this and what have you, is that also wasn't just Robert M.L. Baker. I mean, I'm sure that like these, you know, it's all classified, so we don't know who's been written up over the years. But Lowell Wood actually got written up by the JSON group as well. Lowell Wood was one of the thermonuclear weapon designers that worked with John Knuckles. And he had the exact same thing happen to him.
Let me tell you something about him. He was the Fritz Wiki. He was the Fritz Wiki of the engineering world. He was one of the most like genius people you can believe, but he was nasty as shit. You got to be careful. Anyway, yeah.
Well, so here's the thing. So he goes to China and he says a little bit too much. And so then they write him up as well. And it turns out it was the wave equations were the thing that they were upset about with him, which you could imagine is like getting your waves to converge or what have you. So he gets out of it because he gets off on a technicality too. Turns out they find some scientific paper that has the equations in it or something. And so therefore, like now it's, oh, well, there was a scientific paper that was public. So now you're fine. But it hurt him and it hurt his reputation. And yeah, go ahead.
Sure, if I could say very quickly, Edward Teller, I believe it was on the Dick Cavett show, I could be wrong, but he said in 1991, he was trying to leave the hints where he could. So he emphasized on that show, he said, he goes, I want to emphasize the discovery of a groundbreaking new material. He said high temperature superconductors, because around 1990 is when they announced it, I think. Yeah. But the second thing was that Edward Teller had also said, he goes, I believe that we are driving classification far too much in this country. And he gave an example. He said that a lot of American scientists and engineers did not believe that directed energy weapons were possible. He said this on the show in 1991. And basically the Russians were openly talking about it, he said. And then he goes, we had to give security clearances to our scientists in America for me to bring them into a meeting room to show them the equations, he said. And he goes, the reason I'm upset about this, you could tell he was passionate, is because he said the Soviets are openly discussing it, he said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Is that's what we're seeing happen right now. I think this is a good segue to the next topic. So not only is this JSON group that's been writing people up and it's all related to, you know, nuclear weapons. Oh, one more thing I want to say as well is that I also found scientific paper by Knuckles and Wood, in addition to one more person, that they were proposing that nuclear weapons might be used to test relativity, that we could literally produce gravitational waves with thermonuclear weapons. When I saw that paper, I just went, what? How are people not putting two and two together here, guys? Like, and then you've got Edward Teller talking about, you know, that secrecy has gone too far. A lot of people have been saying that. Even Hal Puthoff kind of mentions is like, well, we let secrecy go super far and maybe now we can let some of this stuff come out. So let's talk a little bit about disclosure then.
Oh, thank you, Master. Please, may I have some more? Please give me some more breadcrumbs. Thank you, Mr. Puthoff.
Right?
And, oh boy. You mean immaculate constipation? I'm kidding. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna First, I want to start with 3i Atlas because everybody is
sorry.
talking about 3i Atlas. I can't. This makes me crash out more than most topics do because I can't get over how silly an idea it is that the aliens are flying around on a rock when we've got quantum mechanics. We're literally able to change the arrow of time according to Salvatore Pais. Why does Avi Loeb refuse to believe gravitational waves? Like the guy must just hate gravitational waves more than anything, because I would think that any physicist that understands gravitational waves knows that the aliens are never flying around on a space rock. But go ahead. What are your opinions on Atlas 3i?
He must have hated. He must have really hated the Meissner, Wheeler, and Thorne.
Avi was
the greatest
on
book
SPI.
of all time because I was right there. I mean, one of them actually. Yeah, one.
I don't have a strong opinion on this, and I'm definitely out of the loop. But you can also, and this is likely not happening, but it's pretty easy to discredit something just by throwing something like Avi Loeb on the face of it. But then, you know, there's also different layers to it, I guess you would say, in terms of meteors or rocks showing up, and kind of when things show up, it can lead to a shift in consciousness or whatever. Doesn't necessarily have to be, alien ship or whatever, but yeah, I've not really that drawn to it myself.
One of the three actually got the Nobel Prize for it. So, I don't know what
what's his deal? What do you guys think is obvious deal?
between you and
Yeah.
I think he wrote some interesting book, and he is, after all, a Harvard University professor, extremely intelligent.
The Harvard Endowment Fund's got to be looked into. There's obviously the connections there with Epstein, and obviously the gene editing and transhumanism and things of that nature.
Extremely well versed in the mathematical formalism of astrophysics. Certain things are driven toward achieving certain objectives. I don't think we need to bring the aliens into this at all. Again, man-made tech, gentlemen. Man-made tech. Anyway.
What about you, Dave? What do you think?
Honestly, I'll just come right out and say it, and I've said it to people on my Patreon Zoom calls. I'm personally, I'm indifferent about it. I'm close to people that have other feelings about it. I honestly, quite frankly, at this point don't really care, because for me it's very simple. If I wake up in the morning and something's in the sky or whatever it is, okay, I'll deal with it when it happens. Until then, I'm interested in the science that I can control. So I don't personally, I'm indifferent. Do I think Avi Loeb has seen things that he cannot talk about in the lower Earth orbit and even near Earth and far orbit? Absolutely. But that's in terms of the Atlas itself. I don't get myself excited for it. Even when I see an article, I don't even click on it, to be honest with you. That's just me. But
no, I agree. I think that it's kind of silly. To me, it's regressive thinking. It's like the aliens ought to be less advanced than we are to be flying around on rocks. I mean, the only thing that gets me excited about that is like maybe there's some bacteria or something, and there's some ancient bacteria that whatever that we can unfreeze and then what have you. But
you look, for example, at what they're saying with this official narrative about 3i Atlas, about what could it be, maybe this, maybe that, and the questions never end. But then you have someone like former Lockheed engineer Boyd Bushman on his deathbed saying that you have craft coming in and out all the time to Earth. So
but from a Trojan horse point of view,
right,
if you had a special weapon, not necessarily that you need an armada for, even though there's great quality and quantity.
Right.
As the Man of Steel once said, the one that's born December 18th, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, there's no need for a swarm of drones, and all you need is a Trojan horse to come depositing a special weapon.
Right.
A weapon that Brother Ashton has been describing for quite a while now. But also, one such intensity as to basically rupture the Earth apart. Is it possible? Plasma disruption fusion weapon speaks to that physics. Yes, it's possible.
If I can say very quickly from a critical thinking perspective, we have to consider that I'm not saying this is what something's coming. This is just my opinion. But we have to consider possibilities like the fact that it's very possible. People always talk about, nuclear bombs being launched and everything like that. But what if, whether it's done to us or whether it's done to our enemies or whatever, what if, for example, you have a country, right? And then you have some, intelligence agents, they go into that country and they go to a building or a warehouse and they put just the outer shell of a nuclear bomb there. There's nothing in it. But then from a satellite or from a directed energy weapon, they send out a longitudinal scalar wave pulse that then simulates the effects of a nuke. And then they use social media to get everyone very distraught and distressed, when really it was just a little EMP that just turned off your electronics. So we have to think about, what are they trying to control with, and we have to use our critical thinking is what I would say.
Yeah, and before all of this, it would have been really easy for them to make something look like an alien invasion, or people are thinking space rocks are aliens. So if there's some orbs come flying around in triangle formations, everyone's going to be thinking it's aliens with no question. But the stock that's going up, in my opinion, especially after this conversation, is future human stock. Is that instead of your Trojan horse, and instead of take the same idea, but instead of this blue beam scenario.
Right.
Imagine all it would take to change the course of history is to send a time machine back in time and give it to people of the past, right?
Oh, wow.
And if you do that, just sending a message is enough. You don't even have to transmit yourself to the past. Just tell people, like, imagine that,
Oh boy.
you know, somebody transmitted back to Tesla energy, frequency, vibration, and then that became his whole life, right? That would change the whole course of human history, right?
Wow.
And something that simple could lead to that. So the idea of future humans is the one that I think is the most interesting, especially if retrocausality is possible. If retrocausality is possible, then I think the answer to the alien question is it's us. It's us from the future. It would have to be. I mean, that makes more sense than little green men to me.
I don't mean to push any particular. I don't mean to push any particular narrative or anything of the type. But since you brought up that theorem, Ashton, I will say that putting all the spectacles aside, if you will, I know that that was something that Dr. Dan Burish claimed, that these grays were in fact humans from the future, and they were entering points in our past to give us certain technology to then alter an outcome. Again, not saying I believe it or disbelieve it. It's just interesting that he claimed that. So it's very, I don't rule that out at all.
What's scary is AI, and even machine intelligence could calculate every possible outcome and predict what those outcomes are going to be, and then predict what you sending a message back in time would do to shape and change those outcomes as well. That's the part that scares me the most, is that, and then that's just with the technology that we can already foresee, let alone technology that we don't even have the capability of foreseeing right now. Right. So let's flip over then and talk about age of disclosure. So finally, I guess they got a deal done after like a year and a half. Joe Rogan's seen this documentary for like over a year now. And I guess it's going to be on Amazon Prime. I think they're going to make people pay for it, though. I don't think you can even watch it for free. So, but what are you guys' thoughts on some of this? I think the only thing that's intriguing to me about it, well, first of all, I like to watch Hal Puthoff. And I think in the interview, he even mentions in the trailer that just dropped, he mentions the idea that aliens or whatever, non-human intelligence, is using nuclear technology, energy sources, potentially the propulsion. So I'm interested to see anything by Hal Puthoff talking about the science. And he's always very, very vague about the alien stuff.
You want to know my honest opinion? I'll just say it right now because I feel it's appropriate. The gentleman in the middle of our screen right now, if his inventions came to light, that whole crew, that whole set of individuals.
But brother, didn't a certain Eric W. Davis working for Dr. Harold Puthoff said there is nothing there?
What, in the alien front, you mean?
No, he said about...
Oh, you mean in your thing. Yeah.
That's exactly what he told to Stratton.
Yeah,
exactly
well, Stratton, they're all
words.
CIA, though, man.
There.
They're all CIA. Stratton, listening to Jay Stratton.
Yeah, but the problem is that Thomas Kerr McConnell had to listen to Stratton. He was the O&I dude, so... Yeah.
In other words, when it comes to the movie, I think that, you know, for example, even when Matthew Borland talked about the true values, the energy source, I'm really not trying to put him on a pedestal here, but I naturally am. I do believe that Sal's inventions are the remedies to most of the world's problems, literally, and that's why.
You're a good man.
I believe it, brother. You know why I believe it, and you know why I know it, actually. But that's why I believe that if Sal's inventions were to be experimented on and the experiments were filmed and so on, I believe that this entire narrative on the disclosure side, there would be no movie, there would be nothing, because his inventions provided those answers.
Yeah,
that's my.
You do me great honor, brothers. You do great.
You know who I'm not.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
The person I'm most interested in seeing, though, is Marco Rubio. He's kind of a new addition to these documentaries. Everybody else has basically been in this documentary like five times already.
Have you ever looked at him very carefully? He appears as a very pensive man, a man who thinks before he speaks.
My opinion on him, I think exactly that. I think that he's a thinker. I think he's very smart, but I think he doesn't want to rock the boat. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he, for sure, what Brother Sal said, he is for sure a thinker. You could look at the way the media asks him questions. He thinks like a lot of these guys don't. You could tell his brain is running, and so I do have respect for Mr. Rubio. I do.
I like him. I like him now. I unashamedly like him now. We've gone from little Marco, where he used to drink the water bottle, and had that awkward interview where he's like drinking the water bottle like 50,000 times.
That's because he's passionate. He's passionate.
Had to be some succession plan to tell her. Right?
And absolutely.
Like, and all this information is very compartmentalized. Like, we lost the recipe for Fog Bank, right? We lost it.
Is who took it from Teller?
24
exactly. That's the question. That's what I want to know. I want to know who took it. And I could envision a scenario where they figure out thermonuclear weapons or manipulating space-time, and they write it into the PEDs. They write it into the presidential executive action documents so that it supersedes any future president. And so now Marco Rubio and Donald Trump come in and they can see the PEDs and they're like, shit, we got to deal with this. We got to not talk about space-time manipulation. We got super nukes. We got shit that nobody even knows about, right? I could totally see a scenario like that where they do that because they also learn from their mistakes and they go, we can't lose this information because we didn't have somebody else come in because they were trying to keep it super compartmentalized.
And then what if there's a ripple effect in some instances where just by revealing the information incriminates the scientists that worked on it?
Yeah.
That's
a big problem. The legality of it is a big problem. This is what Dr. Stephen Greer and I spoke about a lot, which is that he says, well, these are illegal. And I go, I think it's technically legal. The problem is the public won't think it's legal, right? When you come out and say, we've had infinite energy technologies and fusion technologies, and by the way, we just had to hide it for national security. Like, go ahead.
I'll say something that is to that point, which is that in many levels, I do fundamentally agree with what Greer is saying on the big picture aspect. However, there was a leaked document between someone named John Estridge and an anonymous contractor, and this. I believe that it's real, just my opinion. And if it is real, we have to realize that this contractor who worked on these programs was telling Mr. Estridge, basically, you have to understand, you can't just go and raid these facilities because a lot of people working in the facilities don't want to leave. They like it. They like the way that it's set up. Not everybody, but some of them are. And even imagine you're a good person. You're just an engineer working in these programs. You're 5-10 years away from retirement. And then if you hear all these things, you don't want that problem. Some of them are willing to speak up and God bless them. But other ones, I understand, don't want to be saved from it. They just want to do their thing and that's it. And that's the problem. The problem, in my opinion, is getting enough people to say, yes, we want this to go.
Natural law problem. Can't just be order followers and act like you're not part of the problem.
Be brought into the light.
And this is the reason why I think this is the answer to the question, because it's the same deal as politics. It's like libertarians. I want there to be no government, right? We want to get rid of all this. We want to get rid of personal income taxes. But at the end of the day, that's not how the world works. The world is not idealistic. The world.
Blah blah blah. This is where we just differ. Continually, obviously, let's just vote for the slavery system because that's just how the world works. Social Darwinism. We're just going to kill them before they kill us.
Well, it's pragmatic.
Well,
okay, so let me just finish this thought. Is that the same thing is also true of like this science, this technology, this suppression of all of this as well? Is that people think, oh, well.
Yeah, the same argument, which is that keeps getting, slavery systems imposed, is the same argument for, oh, you can't have it because you'll blow the world up. Yeah, same argument. That's why this argument is fucked and bullshit, and let's not do that.
We could just reveal this and then everything will come collapsing. No, it's because it's all baked in. The system is set up this way. You can't just flip the whole system on its head.
Well, you can't.
Right? And that's never going to work because people are incentivized into the system.
And there have
been, and fuck them.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
Oh, you're good.
There have been people. Let me just give another example. People will say, "Well, what if we go outside the system?" And there have been people that they get $5, $10, $20,000. They make a device in their garage, and it does what it says it does. But here's the thing: the system, academia, or the government, they never acknowledge it because just by acknowledging it means that you have to acknowledge new physics, and it means that it's real. So the other side of that is working outside of the system and basically having people like you and your audience, Ashton, realizing this is a spiritual and a mental war, not a technological war. The technology's been there. It's just taking a
spiritual war, but Ashton doesn't understand the spiritual part because it's kind of normally CNN brain. It's like, no, Occam's razor, no, the science, no, the pragmatism of the government and, cause China and Russia. So yeah, we've got to have a mindset shift so we can have a new systems in place, imagination. Perspective
on it, and then realizing, oh crap, we've been gaslit in many different ways. So thank you. That was
this actually rolls into my last topic, which is I think there is another way. I think there is another way, which is, okay, I've been trying to catch up and figure out, okay, this is what they had 10 years ago. Where do they have now? And what technology is now leaking out to the public? And you know what I've kind of coalesced on, what I've converged on? Aneutronic fusion. I've looked at tri-alpha energy, helium fusion, and I have a feeling Commonwealth fusion, which is funded by Bill Gates and a bunch of other Palantir people, I have a feeling they're going to switch over to aneutronic at some point as well.
How about aneutronic fusion powering AGI? How about a war of ideas, gentlemen? How about their AGI fighting ours so we don't have to die?
I don't want to say too much, but I've been talking to people, and yes, I've been pushing that idea that our AI data centers are going to be powered by aneutronic fusion. But here's the answer then, is that my opinion of fusion, I want to get your guys' opinion as well, is that they're going to give us a nerfed version of it. Because assuming that we can amplify energy to the level where we can make a black hole, that means we have access to unlimited. Our coefficient of performance can just be in like the thousands, right? If we were to engineer like a black hole that's stable, just like actually, this is literally what Lowell Wood wanted to do.
What if the equation changed? The equation changed. It doesn't have a COP in it anymore.
And
so, yeah, it could be infinite COP.
Only thing that, no, what Sal is saying is that interestingly, over the past 50 years, we don't measure in COP as much like we used to. Yeah, the only thing that measures COP in modern homes, I believe, is a heat pump.
Yeah,
I think I think
almost on the way out. Yeah.
Well,
so anyway, my thought is that here's what we can do: is that if we can push the public towards these breakthrough technologies that, I've spoken to some very, let's just say, intelligent business people about this, and nobody understands aneutronic fusion. They all ask me the same question: why is that going to be the one? Why is this going to be the one that's going to work compared to the other ones? I mean, how do you really answer that question?
Are people
boron 11. Boron 11. It's the
boron 11. Yes.
There are people that still think the second law of thermo applies, but anyways.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's like deuterium. It's like freaking deuterium for the plasma compression fusion device. But the plasma compression fusion device, that paper also mentioned boron 11.
Did it? Yeah.
Yes. So
my first reference I can find, I mean, the references go further back, but the one that really blew my mind was the JANF 2005, where they were talking about all the alternative fusion fuels, and they talk about helium-3, boron 11.
There's a way to generate high-frequency gravitational waves with boron and plasma vortexes.
Really?
There's a way, possibly.
Well, you know what's also crazy, Dave, to that interview with Eric Davis, the crazy part was we started talking about lithium. First of all, how is he mispronouncing
the lithium-6 in Castle Bravo generated the almost twice the yield.
At the university.
I wish I could speak like him, but
you're saying at the university.
It was the lithium-6.
The lithium-6. The university announcement. Yeah. I remember.
Well, so that was interesting because he brought that up. He goes, "Oh, what's the third aneutronic fuel?" He goes, "Lithium," and then he says that's also used in thermonuclear weapons. And I go, "Oh, wow!" And now I'm wondering. And I did a little bit of research. It turns out like I don't understand all the chemistry or whatever, but they said there's reasons why they don't use lithium in the aneutronic fusion. But I seriously have to wonder about that. Well, like, why are we doing helium-3 and why is there boron 11 but no discussion of lithium?
Because what if both from a nuclear perspective and even from an electromagnetic perspective, whether we're talking about mass reduction or COP or whatever, what if one of the reasons this is so threatening to the system is that it's not using any new material or new technology? It is using a certain type of amalgamation or combination of known technologies. That's the other.
What if there's no magic in the magic?
Right. It's just a different perspective on the engineer. Yes.
And you know what's weird too is that this is what I keep thinking about brilliant light power is that he's using lithium in his reactions as well when he's doing it. So I'm sitting there and wondering, like, he may not be doing the exact thing. He might not even know what he's doing.
I'll give you, if I can give one last example, there was a problem that is yet to be solved publicly that had to deal with the homopolar motor in the 1800s, the homopolar motor. And basically, Sal knows what I'm getting. Yes. And it has to do with this N, the letter N versus M the letter M, hypothesis, moving lines hypothesis. Back then, the concept of the ether was going in and out, and people were debating, are there moving lines of force around the setup in the homopolar motor, or are there not? The reason this was a problem was because when they took, for example, two magnets in between, and they took a conductor, metal conductor, and they put two magnets in between it like a sandwich, and they spun it with their hand. They noticed a voltage was created when technically there shouldn't be, because voltages are created by relative differentials, but all of this was spinning at the same time.
Was it in one particular direction only?
Yes, it was. Now,
how
the
interesting.
The reason I want to bring all this up is because publicly we still haven't solved that problem, and yet we're going on to other things. This is why I praise Sal when he says you have to go back to the basics, because that's where this stuff is lying, in my opinion, is hidden.
So how long do you guys think until we have fusion energy? How do you guys think it's going to play out?
Definitely it won't come from ether. Ether just eats money. Give me some millions. Give me some millions. Oh, I'm hungry. Give me another 50. Come on.
There's a good video by a guy that was hating on helium fusion. That was like, they've never proven that it works. They got this contract with Microsoft, but it's ITER is going to be the one that really figures it out. They're the one. I'm just sitting there going, this person, I already know like who they voted for. I already know how many shots they got during COVID, right? Like, I'm just going, wow. Like,
brother,
really
they're not even using Repco superconductors. They're not using the rare earth barium copper oxide, the YBC. They're not using even what MIT is, because now MIT has realized the whole idea is really that beta factor, that I believe there's a magnetic pressure divided by the plasma pressure. It has to do with how compact you make your reactor. Remember the Poseidon? Remember the Burevestnik? These new Russian weapons? Dude, do you really think they use? Dude, what kind of closed cycle thermonuclear reactor can fit on a fucking unmanned torpedo that's about 20 meters by 2 meters?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And that's the other, yeah. Yep. I think there's been also a systemically a major divergence from people looking into things like spark gaps.
President Trump's direction,
right,
is essential.
Yep.
He's doing a good job.
Because we are starting to get that gap is closing, gentlemen.
Yeah. China's catching up, and Trump even said this. China, I think that what we're seeing happen is there's a huge new investment in fusion. They had 5 new quantum.
Still don't believe in the American-China thing. We're talking about transnational corporations here and powers beyond governments.
Some data centers, or I don't know if they're quantum data centers, but research facilities, research centers that were opened up at the labs as well. We're seeing,
and also we know that America works with China behind the scenes, and there's all kinds of technology kind of sharing and backdoors and funding and people acting beyond the interest of any particular nation state.
And I think it's happening because China's catching up. We spoke earlier and said, part of it is that we will probably reveal it when Russia or China shows off their technology, and then we'll say, oh yeah, we had that too, right? Like,
well, you notice a lot of these facilities and these companies, whether they're government or private, you notice a lot of them, and I'm not saying this is bad or good, but I'm just saying notice how a lot of them, even during their promotional videos that they put online, they don't actually tell you how the system's working. They don't actually explain to you what's going on. They use the word quantum like a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't actually explain what's occurring, how it's occurring, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, this is part of what they've done with language as well. So this is why having the definitions and etymology of words is so key as well. Whether you're looking into ancient Egypt and hieroglyphs, or whether you're looking into Latin origins of words and words like sovereignty and anarchy and what it really means. Having no rulers, and they do the same thing with the quantum and 0-point energy. They mix and mash language so people don't really know what you're talking about.
One last thought, which is the other thing that when I ask, very smart people that are connected to some of these businesses and things, is that I ask them, what do you think is going to power all these data centers that we're building? You know what their answer is? The answer is nuclear. And I kind of laugh at that because I go, that's kind of just like a buzzword, right? Like when you say nuclear, it means a lot of different things. Nuclear just has to do with the atom. Are we splitting the atom? Are we fusing things together? And this goes to Sal's point, which is that one of the other things that happened is that we're going to build new small modular nuclear reactors that are mobile and portable, compact, that can power our military bases overseas for 3 years.
That beta goes as R cubed, R being the characteristic, length scale of your whatever device.
Doesn't that mean the power factor increases significantly? Isn't that what that means?
The beta is directly related to the idea that you get more energy out than you put in.
And it's possible parametric resonance can help amplify that. Yeah.
And you don't need the ignition condition. Now, the plasma compression fusion device just does it because it's super cool.
Well, this is why, I'll mention quickly, this is why I know that there was a lot of investigation into spark gaps many years ago. Spark gaps that would lead to plasma and so on and fusion and what have you, that we know I think Ken Shoulders looked into, and that was quietly sort of hushed to the side. Yeah,
and this is the last thought that I think is just really huge, is that when I listened to David Kirkley, who's the CEO of Helium Fusion, he mentioned specifically they don't need ignition. I mean, that I spoke to some of these intelligent people that are out there, and I told them part of the reason why aneutronic is so big is one, direct energy conversion. You're converting it directly to electricity, not to heat. And I told them high beta value is super big. But the other big one is we don't need ignition to get over unity, to get, Q factor greater than 1. That is
But it's nice to be self-sustaining. That's why ignition comes in.
Yes, I mean, ignition's still great for a self-sustaining reaction, but you can produce an electrical engineering system that still produces over unity.
I think that's ignition. What they have on the Poseidon, gentlemen. I think that's what they have.
You think that's Poseidon. What Poseidon's Russia's thing?
Yeah.
Well, you think about it like this, Ashton, right? We talked about COP.
The underwater thing that can go 1 kilometer down, basically sit there for years, and then here comes your nice carrier group, and all of a sudden this implosion that just sucks in the whole fucking fleet, and you're like, shit, 30 seconds passed, where the fuck did it go? Anyway, God forbid. God forbid. Anyway,
one thing I wanted to mention on a more rudimentary level, Ashton, for you and your audience, was that if you look, for example, at why COP, coefficient of performance measurement, was ushered out, we know, for example, that if we look at a heat pump, we know that that's still used to measure the heat inside of a heat pump. Now, if we think of the quantum vacuum or the ether as having all of these magnetic fluctuations, what if our electrical setup treats the magnetic fields as heat pumps or magnetic pumps, if you will? Then maybe
that's definitely how we should be thinking about it. I mean, this was another this is probably the best unlabbed Charles Chase video that's out there. By the way, this guy is a Lockheed Martin senior fellow engineer that built a compact fusion reactor. His YouTube channel has less than 1,000 subscribers.
I know.
The videos had like 20 views before I started watching them and showing them. But my favorite one is the guy about Yorichiro. I forget his last name, but he does 2. One is about like 3 electrical charges, like orbs, and how they interact with one another. But the second part is about breaking the laws of thermodynamics using relativity, where he's like, if I have something moving super fast away from another object, you can actually cause cold to flow to hot, as opposed to hot to flow to cold, which would speak to like a negentropic type of event occurring.
Oops. There goes the second law.
Yeah, there goes the second law. And that's what I just thought was beautiful, because if you guys have watched my streams, one of the things that I've been talking about is the nuclear pumped relativistic free electron laser using plasma mirrors, basically, to amplify energy. And this was something those guys worked on. All those nuclear engineers worked on way back when.
I'll say something, if I can, very quickly. Whether it's with semiconductors or with larger scale systems, in my opinion, it's all about the free electrons, not the bounded ones, the free electrons. Yes.
Which speaks to what? A non-neutral cold plasma.
Right. Yes.
Because they keep on saying, inconsequential, nothing to see here. Really? We shall see.
Right. Yep.
Speaking of which, I watched a pretty interesting video where a guy was making it was like plasma photonics or something, essentially. I don't know if I'm using that terminology right, but what I thought was interesting about it is that he said that metal could almost be considered a plasma due to how free the electrons are in a metal. And I just thought that was interesting because there's a lot of connection between like spinning mercury and anti-gravitational effects going all the way back to the Nazis. And I also like to think about things like we always think about everything in the way that we perceive the world, right? Like one thing. And
don't forget the Vimanas goes all the way 6,000 years. The Mahabharata, the Ramayana,
Yep.
Yeah, so we think about it in the way we perceive the world, but it's like, what is really the difference between a plasma and a metal, right? Like we would think of two completely different things, but if you really boil it down to the
crystal
atoms
lattice.
and the electrons,
you can say that it doesn't really have a crystal lattice. The other one does. But what's to say that one can be made anyway? I'll leave it.
Yeah. I know where you're going. Yep.
Yeah. I better shut up. I keep on, I walk a very fine line on that E-cube. Anyway.
Yeah, well, we've seen what's happened with the JSON, so Sal, don't get yourself in trouble. Neither of you, actually.
No.
Guys, we've gone over 2 hours. It's been a great conversation. I just want to like give you guys each a couple minutes to just either plug anything that you want to, or maybe tell us about either an interesting video or scientific paper or anything that you've been watching recently. Go ahead.
You go first, Brother Rossi, please.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, first off, thank you, Ashton, for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here, and I was super excited when, of course, Brother Sal was able to make it. And Brother Sal, I gotta have. Obviously, my show's not as big as Ashton's, but I gotta have you on my show at some point. But and then bring Ashton back too. But I just want to say, keep up what you're doing with the science. I've been checking the comments in the live stream. A lot of people seem to be putting the pieces together. The only thing I would emphasize to people is, because I know this subject tends to get so exciting, and then we all get scatterbrained because we get so excited about all these different ideas. My humble advice would be for people in the chat or in general, just pick one or two projects and focus, and never neglect simplicity. Just look at old electrical engineering approaches and try and take a different perspective on things that, for example, I'll give direct terms, things like displacement current or parasitic capacitance. Consider that maybe that's not what it is, and that I'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Brother Rossi, man, what can I say? You're the man. Dr. Rossi, Dr. Forbes. Let me just say, Ashton, I'm incredibly proud of you, brother. For real. I mean, and that's why between you and I, this professor, cocksucker, I forget his name. Anyway, that asshole, he should go to fucking hell and stay there. But anyway, listen, you have become formidable. From every point of view, you have become formidable. This idea of blending politics with physics, and I think you also have every now and then you inject your own philosophy into it. So politics, physics, philosophy, again, the triarchy. I think this is going to make your pod not only great, but uniqueness. Ashton, this is what you have in Hard Truths Podcast. Also, all your pods. You have, first of all, you have this formidable quality of being able to make things simple. Because I'll tell you right off the bat, I wish there were fucking Nobel Prize physicists that could make something simple instead of fucking taking half an hour to say something that you have to say in just 2 minutes and make it make sense. So bravo, my brother. Bravo. You have achieved greatness. So that's all I got to say. Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate it, guys. And make sure you guys are following these guys. My true opinion for you guys and for all the audience as well is actually that I've gotten more and more black-pilled actually by a lot of this stuff. Like, it's actually to the point where, and we spoke about a lot of these topics, but like I look at it and I go, man, we are a primitive civilization. We are not even close to ready for what's coming, and I think that the gatekeepers are aware of that. They're aware of that. And they're like, man, we don't know if we're going to make it through this, right? But we're going to roll these dice anyway. So
between you and I, brother, I hope, I pray we have armadas out there, intergalactic, whatever, between you and I
It's up for us to decide and choose our own future because we are ready. We've just got to choose that. I mean, I know you can argue that, okay, we're not ready because we're not living an objectively moral way and all that kind of thing, but it's up to us to decide it, not someone else.
pray for that. Because right now we're dealing with maybe even pre-kindergarten physics.
Yeah.
But everybody's acting like, I'm the best. Anyway,
Right,
sorry, you go ahead and, sorry, I won't interrupt anymore, promise, at least for now.
Okay, well, that's all, guys. Thank you guys very much. This has been an amazing Hard Truths podcast, guys. Thank you so much, U.S. Navy engineers.
All right, guys. Well, I wanted to go through that today. I think that this is really dovetailing on some of these key subjects because we're getting into kind of the spiritual warfare. We're getting into the, when we talk about natural law, one of the, talk about keeping things simple, we're talking about the fabric of objective reality beneath the surface, these natural principles on how the world and how the universe works. And 0-point energy and this technology is a way that is tapping into that and is kind of provides some real answers. So when we're starting to get into these moral questions or, why others can have it and we can't, it really brings up this conversation and it's a discussion that we've got to have, which is around, our choice to have it. And, the fact that it can be used for weaponry is not a good enough argument. And then also this other argument of, nation states and China and all of this kind of thing. And then, the dark side of it, I'm not on board at all with these arguments. So that's why I wanted to show it. And I think that these guys are great sources. That's also why I wanted to show it. Go check out Generation Z, Dave Rossi's show, and ZED, and then also Salvatore Pais and his you look up his academic papers. And we'll get into potentially Ash and Forbes on Stephen Greer as well in a future episode. So until the next one, ciao for now. Bye-bye.